Chapter 1. Mastering the Secrets of Nonverbal Communication. The fascination with the unspoken language of the human form often stems from the most grounded, practical necessities of survival, rather than any lofty academic pursuit. Imagine arriving in a foreign land as a young child, displaced by political upheaval and entirely unable to speak the local tongue. This was the reality of arriving in the United States as an 8-year-old refugee following the Bay of Pigs invasion. To adapt to a completely new educational environment without the benefit of a shared vocabulary, one must lean heavily on the universal dialect that surrounds us all, the physical cues broadcast by the human body. To a child in such circumstances, every person becomes a living billboard, continuously advertising their internal thoughts and emotional states through subtle shifts in posture, the fleeting tension of a facial muscle, or a specific hand gesture. The English language was eventually mastered, but the reliance on this deeper, silent language remained a permanent fixture. It became immediately apparent that a classmate's arched eyebrow upon entering a room was a reliable indicator of warmth and acceptance, whereas a slight narrowing of the eyes telegraphed hostility or suspicion. These early, vital lessons in decoding the physical manifestations of human emotion laid the groundwork for a lifelong reliance on behavioral observation. Decades later, these precise visual cues would prove instrumental in high-stakes environments, serving as the cornerstone for solving complex federal crimes and unmasking deception within the intelligence community. The objective now is to impart this highly refined, expert-level observational framework so that anyone can learn to view every human interaction as a dynamic, information-rich exchange. This unspoken dialect is essentially a channel for transmitting information that bypasses the spoken word. It encompasses a vast spectrum of physical expressions, including the micro-movements of the face, deliberate gestures, the psychology of physical touch, overall posture, the manipulation of spatial distance, choices in personal adornment, and even the subtle modulations in the tone and volume of one's voice. Research indicates that the majority of all interpersonal communication, well over half, is conducted through these silent channels, and in highly intimate moments it can constitute the entirety of an exchange. Because these physical signals occur on a subconscious level, they are frequently referred to as tells. They offer a direct window into an individual's true state of mind, consistently proving more reliable and authentic than conscious, carefully constructed verbal statements. A compelling illustration of this involves a criminal suspect who verbally constructed a perfectly plausible alibi, insisting he had traveled in one direction while his hands unconsciously gestured toward the actual scene of the crime. The body simply cannot help but betray the truth even when the mouth is engaged in falsehood. Whenever you successfully capture and decode these discrepancies, you are effectively reading the true intentions of the person before you. Mastering this silent medium offers profound advantages that extend into every facet of human existence. Empirical studies have consistently demonstrated that individuals who adeptly interpret physical cues and carefully manage their own non-verbal footprints achieve significantly higher levels of success in their personal and professional lives. The beauty of this behavioral science lies in its absolute universality. It is the fundamental operating system of human interaction across all environments. It explains why, despite the advent of instant digital communication, professionals still cross oceans to conduct business face-to-face. There is simply no substitute for the raw, unvarnished truth revealed through close physical observation. Whether you are analyzing an opponent's subtle tells in a high-stakes card game, or a medical professional sensing the unspoken anxieties of a patient, the ability to decode human behavior is a universally applicable tool that deeply enriches our understanding of the world. Acquiring this level of proficiency is entirely possible for anyone willing to commit to a structured partnership of learning and active application. It requires moving beyond passive looking and embracing a disciplined, concerted effort to truly see the world. To guide this transformation, a foundational set of principles must be rigorously followed until they become entirely second nature, much like the automatic physical coordination required to drive a vehicle. The first and most crucial imperative is to become a highly competent, active observer of your environment. Just as wearing earplugs renders listening impossible, moving through life without deliberate visual focus renders one blind to the rich tapestry of human behavior. The majority of people suffer from a profound lack of situational awareness. They're oblivious to the subtle physical shifts happening right in front of them, leading to the all-too-common refrain of being completely blindsided by personal betrayals, professional terminations, or sudden acts of violence. Fortunately, observation is a cognitive muscle that can be strengthened through relentless, conscious exercise. It requires utilizing every sensory input available, from the lingering scent in a room to the subtlest shift in a shadow, to build an accurate, holistic picture of your surroundings. Secondly, every physical cue must be strictly evaluated within its specific context. Expecting calm rationality from someone who has just experienced a severe trauma ignores the profound physiological hijacking that occurs during immense stress. A trembling hand or erratic behavior following a traumatic incident is a natural contextual response, not necessarily a sign of deception. However, if those same stress behaviors suddenly reappear during a benign conversation when a specific topic is broached, they carry a vastly different and highly significant meaning. Third, one must learn to identify the universal physical behaviors that are shared across the human species. For example, the subconscious compression of the lips until they nearly disappear is a cross-cultural indicator of severe stress, disagreement, or internal conflict. Recognizing these universal markers provides an immediate, reliable baseline for understanding human sentiment in almost any situation. Fourth, in addition to universal signs, one must meticulously catalog the idiosyncratic behaviors unique to specific individuals. By observing friends, family, and colleagues over time, you will notice highly personalized stress responses. Perhaps a specific way someone touches their collar or bites their cheek before a difficult task. These unique behavioral signatures are invaluable predictors of future actions and internal states. Fifth, to accurately identify when something is wrong, you must first establish what is normal. Whenever interacting with others, take an immediate mental snapshot of their baseline posture, facial relaxation, and general demeanor. Without establishing this baseline, it is impossible to detect the critical deviations and subtle changes in physical tension that signal a shift in thought, emotion, or intent. Sixth, the most accurate behavioral assessments are never based on a single, isolated gesture. True proficiency requires watching for clusters of physical cues. Multiple physical signals occurring in rapid succession act like interlocking puzzle pieces, providing a far more robust and verifiable picture of an individual's psychological state. Seventh, the vigilant observer must constantly watch for sudden shifts in behavior, a rapid transition from relaxed posture to sudden rigidity, or the flaring of nostrils preceding an aggressive act are intention cues. They serve as critical early warning systems, broadcasting how a person is processing new information or preparing to take immediate physical action, offering the observer precious seconds to react or prepare. Eighth, distinguishing between authentic emotional displays and fabricated signals is paramount. The human capacity for deception requires the observer to practice profound judgment and to learn the subtle physiological differences between a genuine expression and a contrived imitation. Ninth, the entire spectrum of human physical expression can generally be distilled into two primary domains: comfort and discomfort. This binary framework is the master key to decoding behavior. When observing a physical action, constantly ask whether the body is radiating a state of secure contentment or a state of anxious tension. Finally, the 10th principle demands that all observation be conducted with the utmost subtlety. Intrusive staring fundamentally alters the environment and makes the subject hyper-aware, thereby destroying the natural flow of physical information. The goal is to monitor the environment so seamlessly and unobtrusively that your scrutiny remains entirely undetected. While the human body is capable of transmitting an overwhelming array of signals, decades of field experience and scientific research have successfully isolated the most vital and revealing behaviors. Instead of spending a lifetime attempting to catalog every twitch, one can focus on the specific physical tells that have been empirically proven to broadcast true intent. This involves challenging deeply ingrained assumptions about where to look for honesty. For example, focusing solely on the face, the very area we are taught from childhood to manipulate for social harmony, is often a mistake. Instead, a biological and evolutionary approach reveals that other, lower extremities offer a far more unvarnished reflection of truth. The ultimate validity of this behavioral science is not merely academic. It has been rigorously tested and legally enshrined. History provides powerful examples, such as the landmark Supreme Court ruling that validated a seasoned detective's decision to intervene based solely on the predatory, nonverbal pacing of individuals casing a storefront. The highest courts have recognized what behavioral experts have long known. Our physical movements, when properly decoded, are profound, reliable predictors of our deepest intentions and future actions. Chapter 2. Living our limbic legacy. The human brain is a marvel of evolutionary engineering, an intricate network of systems layered upon one another over millennia. Yet, when it comes to the raw, unvarnished truth of nonverbal communication, the highly evolved neocortex, our conscious, thinking brain, takes a secondary role. The true master of our physical tells is the limbic system. It is a profoundly elegant network nestled deep within the architecture of the skull, responsible for our most primal survival instincts and our most authentic emotional reactions. Unlike the conscious mind, which can be easily trained to lie, to mask its true intentions, or to weave complex webs of deception, the limbic brain is fiercely, uncompromisingly honest. It processes environmental stimuli and dictates physical reactions instantaneously, operating entirely beneath the threshold of conscious thought. This makes it the ultimate, undeniable command center for the body's silent language. For countless generations, this elegant system has ensured the continued survival of the human species through a highly refined, automatic sequence of reactions to physical threats and psychological stressors. This sequence is universally expressed in 3 distinct, escalating stages of nonverbal behavior, deeply hardwired into our physiology: freeze, flight, and fight. The absolute first instinct of a human being exposed to a sudden threat, a shocking revelation, or an intense interrogation is not to run or to attack, but to become entirely, almost unnaturally motionless. This freeze response is a primal echo from our most distant ancestors, an instinctual mechanism designed to avoid detection by predators whose visual tracking is triggered by sudden movement. In the context of modern human interaction, this translates to the sudden holding of breath during a tense boardroom negotiation, the abrupt halting of an animated hand gesture when a highly sensitive topic is introduced, or the rigid stillness that overtakes an individual caught in a falsehood. It is the limbic system's immediate, subconscious command to stop everything, assess the danger, and remain completely unseen. If remaining perfectly still fails to mitigate the perceived danger or alleviate the stress, the limbic system rapidly escalates to the second phase: flight. While modern civilization dictates that we rarely sprint out of an office or a living room when confronted with a difficult conversation, the biological urge to escape still manifests in undeniable, subtle physical tells. We instinctively attempt to create distance. A person might involuntarily lean back in their chair, subtly angle their feet toward the nearest exit, or unconsciously slide their torso away from the source of their psychological discomfort. Even the brief closing of the eyes or the rubbing of the eyelids to physically block out an undesirable stimulus is a micro-expression of this exact same instinct. It is a biological imperative attempting to put space between the self and the threat. When both freezing and fleeing are impossible, or when they have failed to resolve the crisis, the limbic system triggers its final, most extreme defensive mechanism, the fight response. This is the body's physiological preparation for direct confrontation. In the realm of nonverbal communication, this rarely involves actual physical violence, but rather the subtle, aggressive posturing of dominance. The chest puffs out to appear larger, the physical stance widens to claim territory, and personal space is deliberately invaded. It is the body's visceral way of demonstrating strength and an absolute readiness to engage, serving as a clear physical display of anger, deep frustration, or unyielding determination. Beyond managing these acute, immediate threats, the limbic system is engaged in a constant, delicate balancing act between 2 fundamental emotional states: comfort and discomfort. This continuous binary is the underlying current of all human interaction. When we feel safe, our bodies are relaxed, our movements are fluid, and our breathing is entirely steady. We might envision this state of comfort like bathing in a soft golden sunrise light, where every interaction feels natural, warm, and entirely unburdened. However, the moment we encounter stress, anxiety, or the cognitive load of maintaining a deceit, our limbic system plunges us into discomfort, and the body immediately, subconsciously seeks to restore its lost equilibrium. This vital restoration process is achieved through what are known as pacifying behaviors. These are unconscious, self-soothing physical actions designed to calm the agitated nervous system. Recognizing the onset of these pacifiers is one of the most critical skills in behavioral analysis. They serve as immediate, tangible evidence that an individual's limbic system is actively grappling with a stressor. The physical variations of these pacifying actions are as diverse as humanity itself, yet they follow highly predictable physiological patterns based on the body's nerve endings. The neck, which is incredibly rich with vagal nerve endings, is a primary site for pacification. A nervous individual might unconsciously stroke the nape of their neck, massage the sides, or adjust a collar to stimulate these nerves and physically lower their heart rate. The face, too, becomes a canvas for self-soothing in moments of discomfort. Subtle rubbing of the cheeks, massaging the forehead, or the repetitive stroking of the lips are all deeply ingrained limbic responses aimed at comforting the self. Sometimes this pacification takes an entirely auditory form. A sharp, exhalating sigh, a repetitive clearing of the throat, or a low, self-reassuring hum are all acoustic methods the body utilizes to release pent-up tension. In moments of intense cognitive load or severe stress, an observer might witness excessive yawning. This is not a sign of boredom, but rather a desperate biological attempt to draw a massive intake of oxygen to a brain that is overheating from psychological stress. Another profound physical tell is the leg cleanser. This occurs when an individual rapidly and forcefully rubs their palms down the tops of their thighs. It serves a dual purpose. It dries hands that have become sweaty from the body's fight or flight response, while simultaneously soothing the nervous system through firm, tactile pressure. Similarly, the ventilator involves pulling a shirt collar away from the skin or adjusting a tie to literally cool down a body that is running hot with anxiety and the physiological arousal of deceit. Perhaps the most profound and easily recognizable pacifier is the self-administered body hug. In this state, a person crosses their arms and tightly grips their own shoulders or upper arms, physically replicating the comforting, protective embrace of another human being to shield themselves from an uncomfortable reality. Mastering the ability to use these pacifiers to read people effectively cannot be achieved by simply memorizing a static list of gestures. It requires an unwavering, disciplined commitment to active observation. Much like embarking on a grueling 100-day challenge to build a new craft from the ground up, the dedicated observer must commit to daily, relentless scrutiny of their environment. By noting the exact microsecond a pacifying behavior occurs and linking it directly back to the specific stimulus, a particular spoken word, a difficult question, or an unexpected arrival, one can accurately map the hidden internal landscape of the subject's mind. Ultimately, the limbic system is the silent, unwavering author of our physical truth. It leaves an undeniable physical trail of our comfort, our anxiety, and our deepest vulnerabilities. By learning to respect and read its elegant, uncompromising language, we strip away the artifice of spoken words and gain an unparalleled, authentic understanding of the human condition. Chapter 3. Getting a leg up on body language. Nonverbals of the feet and legs. When seeking the truth within a human interaction, the vast majority of individuals instinctively lock eyes with their counterpart. Society conditions us from childhood to look at a person's face when they speak, demanding eye contact as a baseline of respect and attention. Yet this intense focus on facial expressions is often the very trap that allows deception to succeed. To understand the profound physical honesty of the human body, one must avert their gaze from the highly practiced mask of the face and look downward. An evolutionary footnote is required here to truly comprehend this paradox. For millions of years, the survival of the human species did not depend on subtle facial negotiations or polite smiles. It depended on the immediate visceral reaction of the lower limbs. Long before complex speech was developed, the feet and legs were the absolute primary instruments of survival. They were the biological engines that instantly executed the limbic system's desperate commands to freeze in the presence of a predator, to flee across the savannah from sudden danger, or to anchor firmly to the earth in preparation for a physical fight. Because their primary, unceasing function was sheer survival, the feet never developed the capacity for conscious deception. Consequently, they remain the most honest part of our body, broadcasting a continuous, unfiltered stream of our true emotional baseline and immediate intent. Recognizing the significant nonverbal behaviors involving the feet and legs begins with observing the purest expressions of limbic joy. Consider the universally recognizable phenomenon of happy feet. This occurs when an individual's feet begin to bounce, tap, or wiggle with rapid, spontaneous energy. It is an irrepressible physical leakage of genuine excitement, sudden confidence, or deep satisfaction. A seasoned negotiator might maintain a face of impenetrable stone when presented with a highly favorable, unexpected offer, but their feet, bouncing happily beneath the boardroom table, betray their absolute delight to anyone trained to look. However, the lower limbs broadcast intent just as loudly as they broadcast joy, particularly when feet shift direction, specifically toward or away from a person or object. The lower body acts as a deeply subconscious compass, always pointing toward the mind's true desire. If two people are speaking and their feet are mutually aligned, the conversational engagement is genuine. But if a polite exchange is occurring and one individual's torso remains attentively facing forward while their lead foot pivots sharply toward the nearest exit, the true intent is undeniably revealed. The mind has already departed the conversation. The body is merely waiting for the socially acceptable opportunity to follow. This silent preparation for departure often manifests in the seated position through the knee clasp. An individual feeling the urge to leave will suddenly place both hands firmly on their knees, shifting their upper body weight slightly forward. This is not merely a comfortable change in posture. It is the physical loading of the body's kinetic spring, the absolute final stage of muscular preparation before rising to exit. Conversely, when an individual feels completely unburdened, victorious, or suddenly elated, one might observe gravity-defying behaviors of the feet, rocking back on the heels, rising up onto the balls of the feet, or a sudden buoyant spring in one's walking step are physical manifestations of a highly elevated psychological state. The mind feels instantly lighter, and the body automatically attempts to physically match that levity. Beyond joy, the lower limbs are profoundly tied to the primal assertion of dominance through the leg splay. By significantly widening the stance, an individual actively claims a larger physical footprint. The territorial imperative is a deeply ingrained survival instinct. Whether a person is standing wide-stanced in a competitive environment or dominating the center of a room, the deliberate widening of the legs is a universal, unspoken declaration of ownership, unyielding confidence, and an absolute refusal to be displaced. Yet, these same powerful limbs are equally capable of demonstrating profound vulnerability and relaxation. Feet and leg displays of high comfort often involve a deliberate, tight crossing of the legs while standing. This specific posture physically off-balances the individual, significantly reducing their immediate ability to fight or flee. A person will only unconsciously adopt this highly vulnerable stance when their limbic system registers absolute safety and trust in their current environment. This established comfort is a crucial underlying foundation for feet and leg displays during courtship. During intimate interactions, the subtle closing of the spatial gap, the gentle, almost accidental brushing of a shoe, or the unconscious mirroring of a partner's stance are deep biological signals of physical attraction and emotional alignment. This delicate social dance is heavily governed by our deeply ingrained need for space. We unconsciously manage the invisible protective perimeters around us, allowing only trusted individuals to breach our inner circles. The way we confidently navigate or anxiously avoid these boundaries is often clearly reflected in our walking style. A purposeful, rhythmic stride projects immense confidence and a clear, unwavering destination, while a shuffling, erratic gait can immediately telegraph internal hesitation, a lack of purpose, or deep-seated anxiety. The harmony of a relationship or a working partnership can even be rapidly assessed by observing cooperative versus non-cooperative feet. When two individuals walk together in perfect sync, their footsteps matching in rhythm and cadence, without conscious effort, it is a powerful non-verbal indicator of profound mutual agreement and emotional rapport. Conversely, clashing strides and constantly breaking rhythm often reflect an underlying psychological disconnect or unspoken tension. The astute observer must also be highly sensitive to any significant change in intensity of foot or leg movement. A foot that has been rhythmically tapping in a relaxed manner and then abruptly halts. The exact moment a highly sensitive question is posed has just provided a monumental psychological clue. This sudden, jarring cessation is the foot freeze, the modern manifestation of the ancient limbic predator evasion tactic. The brain has recognized a threat and ordered immediate protective stillness. In more severe states of discomfort, an individual might instinctively employ the footlock and leave. This defensive posture involves pulling the feet back tightly beneath a chair and securely locking the ankles together. It is a psychological anchoring, a physical locking down of the body's foundation to silently endure an intensely uncomfortable situation, to suppress a deeply held secret, or to weather an emotional storm. Summing it up requires a fundamental, lasting shift in how we perceive human interaction. To read the true, unvarnished intentions of those around us, we must break the lifelong, comfortable habit of seeking truth solely in the face. The mind's most guarded secrets, its sudden fears, its hidden joys, and its undeniable urges to flee are consistently and reliably broadcast by the very limbs that anchor us to the earth. Chapter 4. Torso. Tips. Nonverbals of the torso, hips, chest, and shoulders. To truly understand the vital communications of the human core, one must view the body almost like a meticulously crafted three-dimensional render, examining its structural foundation from every angle to appreciate the profound depth of its posturing. The torso, encompassing the hips, chest, and shoulders, houses the body's most critical life-sustaining organs: the heart, the lungs, the liver, and the digestive tract. Because this central vault is biologically paramount for survival, the limbic brain fiercely and uncompromisingly protects it. Consequently, the movements and protective postures of the torso are rarely conscious choices. They are raw, automatic mandates dictated by millions of years of evolutionary survival. When observing significant nonverbal behaviors involving this central core, one must realize they are watching the brain's highest priority defensive and expressive mechanisms at work. This biological imperative is most instantly visible in the profound geometry of how we angle our bodies. The limbic system automatically commands the torso to lean away from perceived danger, distasteful subjects, or unwelcome individuals. This subtle backward shift, an unspoken retreat, serves to immediately increase the physical distance between the vital organs and the source of psychological or physical discomfort. Conversely, when we are deeply engaged, attracted, or in profound agreement, the torso leans inward, bridging the spatial gap to signal undeniable interest. This spatial negotiation is deeply tied to the concepts of ventral denial and ventral fronting. The ventral or front side of the human body is its most soft and vulnerable plane, exposing it fully to another person, facing them squarely with an open chest and unimpeded abdomen, is the ultimate non-verbal declaration of trust, comfort, and absolute engagement. It is an unvarnished display of fronting. However, the exact moment that comfort evaporates, the body will instinctively execute a ventral denial. With a swift pivot of the hips or a subtle twisting of the shoulders, the vulnerable front is turned away, replacing openness with a cold, defensive angle. This rotational shift is a powerful, silent rejection, often speaking a truth far more profound than any polite verbal agreement. When physical rotation or outright retreat is impossible, the limbic system deploys alternative defensive strategies. The torso shield is a common, everyday manifestation of this instinct. When feeling attacked, insecure, or challenged, an individual will subconsciously seek to place a physical barrier over their vulnerable ventral core. This can involve crossing the arms tightly across the chest, clutching a clipboard or a purse like a shield, or casually placing a pillow across the lap during a tense conversation. These objects act as surrogate armor, providing a deeply necessary psychological comfort by physically guarding the vital organs. On the other end of the emotional spectrum is the torso bow. Rather than shielding, this involves a deliberate, subconscious lowering of the entire upper body. It is an ancient, universally recognized sign of deference, submission, and deep respect, physically lowering one's own stature to elevate the importance of the other. Beyond its role as a biological vault, the chest and shoulders also serve as a living billboard, communicating immense volumes of information before a single word is exchanged. The specific choices in torso embellishments, the sharp cut of a uniform, the display of a corporate logo, or the precise arrangement of jewelry, are deeply calculated projections of social status, group identity, and individual hierarchy. We also constantly manage these displays through the act of preening. The subtle smoothing of a lapel or the adjustment of a collar can signal a biological desire to appear attractive and composed, often acting as a silent prologue to courtship. Yet, if performed dismissively, such as picking imaginary lint off a sleeve while another person is speaking, preening becomes a weaponized gesture, silently broadcasting that the invisible dust holds more value and attention than the individual standing before them. When the limbic brain seeks to project unyielding dominance, it commands the torso to aggressively claim physical territory. Torso splays are powerful territorial displays where an individual spreads their core across maximum space, perhaps draping an arm over an adjacent empty chair or sprawling across a sofa. It is a non-verbal declaration of unassailable confidence and ownership. This assertion of power is often accompanied by the act of puffing up the chest. By drawing a deep breath to artificially expand the physical footprint of the ribcage, the individual mimics the primal, intimidating displays seen across the animal kingdom, signaling a peak state of readiness, vitality, and an absolute refusal to back down. In its most extreme manifestation, this escalates to baring the torso. The literal removal of clothing layers strips away the final physical and social constraints. It is an act of total exposure that precedes only the most intense human extremes, either an imminent, violent physical confrontation or a moment of profound, unguarded intimacy. The internal engine driving these intense physiological states can never be entirely hidden. Breathing behavior and the rhythmic rise and fall of the torso offer a continuous, unedited readout of the nervous system. The sudden, shallow panting of an agitated chest or a sharp involuntary intake of air betrays internal panic, severe stress, or the heavy cognitive burden of deception long before the face manages to arrange itself into a mask of calm. Moving to the apex of the torso, the shoulders stand as incredibly expressive barometers of truth. Imagine viewing these interactions under cool-toned cinematic lighting, where every subtle, high-contrast shift in posture casts a sharp, defining shadow over a person's true intent. Genuine, unrestricted shoulder shrugs, where both shoulders rise smoothly and evenly toward the ears, are undeniable markers of honest ignorance, genuine doubt, or complete transparency. The body is openly confessing its lack of knowledge. In stark contrast are the highly revealing weak shoulder displays, when a person lacks true confidence in their own words, feels suddenly threatened, or is actively suppressing the truth. The shoulders will betray them. They might rise only halfway, ascend asymmetrically, or slowly creep upward as the neck unconsciously shrinks downward, physically mimicking a turtle retreating into its shell. This subtle, shrinking posture screams of profound insecurity and hidden vulnerability. Ultimately, the torso and the shoulders carry the heavy structural weight of our deepest limbic realities. They are the undeniable anchors of human intent, continuously broadcasting a silent, unfiltered truth to anyone disciplined enough to watch. Chapter 5. Knowledge Within Reach. Nonverbals of the arms. The arms are the body's primary agents of interaction with the external world. They are the mechanisms by which we reach out to grasp our desires, push away our aversions, and physically navigate the space we inhabit. Unlike the legs, which are deeply rooted in the primal mechanics of flight or grounding, the arms are incredibly dynamic, capable of an astonishing range of subtle expression and forceful assertion. When observing a human subject, one must view their arms as extensions of the limbic brain's intent, acting as dynamic levers that either expand to conquer an environment or retract to shield the vital core. Imagine a scene cast in cool, toned, atmospheric lighting. Every deliberate extension of an arm or sudden, nervous retraction casts a sharp, defining shadow, visually amplifying the hidden psychological state of the individual. When the limbic system registers a sudden threat, severe anxiety, or the heavy cognitive burden of deception, it immediately commands a restriction of arm movement. This is a subtle, modern echo of an ancient predator evasion tactic. The brain instinctively pulls the limbs inward, binding them tightly against the torso to minimize the physical silhouette and avoid drawing unwanted attention. An observer will notice that an individual who is lying, deeply insecure, or feeling cornered will suddenly cease all broad, expansive gesturing. Their arms become rigid, perhaps pinned to the sides of a chair or held close to the ribs. This profound stillness is never a sign of calm. It is the physical manifestation of a mind actively attempting to shrink away from scrutiny, locking down the body's outward expressions to desperately guard an internal secret. In stark contrast to this limbic retraction, a confident and unthreatened mind utilizes the arms to actively conquer space. Territorial displays of the arms are clear, undeniable broadcasts of authority and ownership. By extending the arms outward, perhaps resting them along the back of an adjacent chair or spreading them wide across a conference table, an individual effectively increases their physical footprint. This is a biological imperative translated into modern social dynamics. The deliberate claiming of physical territory with the upper limbs signals unyielding confidence, a sense of absolute belonging, and a clear, unspoken warning to others that this space is occupied and will not be easily surrendered. This territorial imperative frequently crystallizes into the universally recognized dominant pose, often seen as standing with hands firmly planted on the hips, with elbows flared aggressively outward. This posture physically enlarges the individual's presence. By forcing the arms away from the body and creating a wider, more imposing silhouette, the person subconsciously mimics the survival tactics used throughout the natural world to intimidate rivals. It is a non-verbal declaration of unwavering readiness, deep-seated authority, and a complete lack of submission. When an individual adopts this stance, they are silently but forcefully communicating that they are in command of the situation, entirely unafraid, and prepared to stand their ground against any incoming challenge. As we move from the assertion of dominance to the delicate intricacies of human connection, the arms take on a profoundly different role. Arm behaviors in courtship are characterized by a softening of tension and a deliberate, gradual closing of the spatial divide. When physical attraction and emotional rapport are present, the arms are used to gently test boundaries and invite intimacy. An observer might note the subtle, seemingly accidental brushing of a sleeve, or the unconscious, rhythmic mimicry of a partner's gestures. Furthermore, exposing the soft, vulnerable underside of the inner arm, often achieved by resting the arm openly on a table with the palm facing upward, is a deep, limbic signal of absolute trust. It is the physical removal of barriers, indicating a welcoming, unguarded state that actively invites further connection. Ultimately, the highest expression of this vulnerability and trust is realized when the arms become conduits of affection. The act of reaching out to embrace another human being is perhaps the most profound nonverbal communication of all. By wrapping the arms around someone, an individual completely exposes their own vital core, while simultaneously offering physical protection and deep sensory comfort to the other. This action floods the nervous system with calming, reassuring signals, effectively neutralizing limbic stress and establishing an undeniable physiological bond. It is in these moments of unrestricted, genuine embrace that the silent language of the body speaks its most beautiful and undeniable truth, proving that our limbs are not merely tools for survival, but the very instruments through which we convey our deepest emotional realities. Chapter 6. Getting a Grip. Nonverbals of the Hands and Fingers. The human hand is a physiological masterpiece, an unparalleled instrument of evolution that separates our species from all others. It is the primary tool by which we have built civilizations, painted masterpieces, and physically manipulated the world around us. Because the hands are absolutely essential to human survival and expression, a disproportionately massive amount of the brain's motor cortex is entirely dedicated to controlling their intricate movements. This profound neurological connection means that the hands are inextricably linked to our most deeply held cognitive processes and emotional states. They are not merely tools, they are highly sensitive, external monitors, continuously broadcasting the subtle internal fluctuations of the limbic system. Trying to mask the true intent of the hands is a nearly impossible task, as their micro-movements are dictated by ancient neural pathways that bypass conscious control. To master the observation of these extremities, one must view them with the meticulous focus of a director framing a crucial scene, utilizing high contrast, cinematic lighting in the mind's eye to illuminate every subtle tremor, every confident extension, and every anxious retraction. When an individual feels deeply secure and immensely confident in their knowledge or position, the hands naturally adopt expansive, elevated postures. The most profound nonverbal display of absolute confidence is the gesture of steepling, where the fingertips of both hands are pressed together while the palms remain separated, mimicking the sharp peak of a church spire. This structural display is a universal broadcast of unwavering certainty, frequently observed in top-tier executives, seasoned litigators, and individuals who are absolutely convinced of the validity of their own words. Conversely, the moment doubt, insecurity, or a sudden threat enters the mind, this steeple will immediately collapse, its structural integrity destroyed by the limbic system's sudden shift from comfort to distress. This continuous oscillation between power and vulnerability is further revealed through the micro-expressions of the hands, particularly the behavior of the thumbs. The thumbs act as the undisputed barometers of self-esteem and dominance. When they are displayed openly, perhaps resting on top of intertwined fingers or hooked outside of pockets while the rest of the hand is hidden, they signal high confidence and a strong, unthreatened ego. It is a subtle, yet powerful assertion of presence. However, when an individual feels suddenly challenged, socially anxious, or caught in a deception, the thumbs are often the first to retreat. They will be tucked away inside the pockets, hidden beneath the folds of a garment, or defensively wrapped inside clenched fists. This immediate withdrawal is the body's subconscious attempt to lower its profile and hide its vulnerability from the surrounding environment. Beyond displays of confidence and submission, the hands are constantly engaged in the raw, unfiltered management of limbic stress. When the cognitive load of a conversation becomes overwhelmingly heavy, the hands will involuntarily initiate pacifying behaviors to soothe the agitated nervous system. The intense, repetitive wringing of the hands is a classic, undeniable physical manifestation of deep internal turmoil, anxiety, or profound grief. The firm rubbing of the palms, the unconscious stroking of individual fingers, or the subtle picking at the cuticles are all desperate, tactile attempts to draw comfort through sensory stimulation. These micro-movements are the physical leakage of a mind struggling to maintain its equilibrium under pressure. Furthermore, the simple act of revealing the palms to another person carries immense psychological weight. For millennia, exposing the empty, upward-facing palms has been an absolute declaration of non-hostility, silently demonstrating that no weapons are concealed and no threat is intended. It remains the universal biological foundation of trust and open communication. When an individual speaks while presenting open palms, their words are physically anchored in an expression of honesty. Conversely, a person attempting to persuade or convey sincerity while keeping their hands entirely hidden beneath a table or shoved deep into their pockets creates an immediate visceral dissonance. The observer's limbic brain instinctively registers the hidden hands as a potential threat, effectively neutralizing the persuasive power of any spoken word. Some concluding remarks about nonverbals of the hands and fingers must emphasize their absolute, uncompromising honesty, while the face can be meticulously trained to wear a mask of polite engagement or feigned innocence. The hands continuously operate on a deeper, more primal frequency. They are the unsung orchestrators of human communication, dynamically shaping our interactions, betraying our hidden anxieties, and cementing our deepest bonds. To ignore the intricate ballet of the hands is to remain deaf to the most articulate and expressive physical voice the body possesses. Chapter 7. The Mind's Canvas. Nonverbals of the Face. The human face is a masterfully constructed facade, the most closely observed and heavily manipulated landscape of the entire body. From our earliest moments of social interaction, we are meticulously trained to arrange our features to project polite interest, hide our deepest resentments, and display warmth even in the presence of an enemy. It functions much like a carefully curated, high-contrast digital thumbnail designed to capture immediate attention and convey a specific, often idealized, narrative to the outside world. Yet this highly practiced exterior is never entirely flawless. When subjected to the intense pressures of the limbic system, the face becomes an unstable canvas. In fleeting micro-expressions, the true psychological state of the individual pierces through the polished rendering. To read the face accurately, one must stop looking at the intended picture and start examining the involuntary, muscular brushstrokes that betray the mind's genuine intent. Among the most revealing and deeply unconscious of these betrayals are tongue displays. When an individual is suddenly confronted with an insurmountable cognitive burden, caught in a complex web of deception, or processing a moment of profound, unexpected failure, the mouth frequently acts as the primary release valve. The tongue may momentarily dart out between the lips, or rapidly glide across the mouth in a sudden, seemingly inexplicable gesture. This is not an indication of hunger or physical thirst, but rather an urgent limbic pacifier. The brain is attempting to literally soothe the intense psychological friction by engaging the highly sensitive nerve endings of the mouth. In moments of extreme concentration, or when an individual feels they have successfully navigated a perilous situation, a subtle jutting of the tongue can also act as an unconscious physical punctuation mark of relief or hidden triumph. As we expand our observation to encompass other nonverbal behaviors of the face, a complex topography of hidden emotion is revealed. The eyes, often romanticized as the windows to the soul, are primarily instruments of limbic survival. When faced with a deeply disturbing image, a sudden physical threat, or even a violently disagreeable spoken opinion, the body will instinctively attempt to sever the visual connection. This manifests in the rapid, forceful closing of the eyelids or a prolonged, unnatural blink, effectively shutting out the offending reality. Similarly, the jaw and the lips offer a continuous readout of internal tension, the sudden compression of the lips, where they are drawn inward until they form a thin, white line, is a universal indicator of negative emotion, unexpressed disagreement, or severe withholding of information. The brain is physically commanding the mouth to seal shut, preventing the escape of dangerous or undesirable words. Moving upward, the brow serves as a profound indicator of psychological weight, primarily visible through a furrowed forehead. The intricate musculature of this region cannot be easily manipulated without conscious effort, making its involuntary contractions highly reliable. When the mind is grappling with intense anxiety, struggling to comprehend a difficult concept, or enduring the heavy burden of a hidden grief, the forehead inevitably wrinkles and pulls downward. It is the physical manifestation of the mind turning inward, deeply entangled in its own cognitive or emotional distress. This furrowing is entirely incongruous with a state of genuine relaxation. If an individual verbally asserts their complete comfort and agreement, while their brow remains tightly locked in a corrugated pattern of tension, the observer must always trust the undeniable physical distress over the spoken reassurance. Concluding thoughts on the face demand a profound reassessment of how we interpret human emotion. The face is a realm of profound duality. It is both the instrument of our greatest social deceptions and the canvas upon which our most authentic limbic realities are continuously, albeit briefly, painted. To master the reading of this landscape, one must learn to see past the deliberate, practiced smile and focus entirely on the microscopic, involuntary tensions that shatter the illusion. It is only by observing the face with this uncompromising, disciplined scrutiny that we can finally understand the complex, hidden truth that lies beneath the surface. Chapter 8. Detecting deception. Proceed with caution. The pursuit of uncovering falsehoods is as old as human communication itself. For centuries, society has been deeply captivated by the idea of a universal, infallible sign of a lie, a modern-day Pinocchio effect, where a specific physical twitch or a fleeting glance instantly unmasks the deceiver. However, this desperate search for a singular, easy answer is fundamentally flawed. To truly master the art of behavioral analysis, one must entirely abandon these pervasive myths and adopt a new, scientifically grounded approach to uncovering deception. The reality is far more complex and requires a paradigm shift away from looking for a simple lie response, and instead focusing on the profound, holistic physiological toll that lying exacts upon the human body. Deception is an incredibly unnatural act for the brain. It requires an immense amount of cognitive energy to suppress the truth. Invent a plausible fabrication. Monitor the listener's reaction and ensure the physical body is not leaking contradictory signals. This immense mental burden inevitably fractures the body's natural harmony, producing a cascade of subtle, involuntary physical tells. This new methodology is entirely anchored in the critical role of the comfort-discomfort equation in detecting deception. The human limbic system simply cannot lie. When an individual is speaking the truth, their mind is unburdened and their body naturally radiates a baseline state of comfort. Their breathing is steady, their posture is relaxed, and their gestures flow with effortless rhythm. However, the exact moment a falsehood is constructed or a sensitive nerve is struck, this comfort instantly evaporates. The brain registers the psychological threat of being caught, and the limbic system plunges the body into a state of profound discomfort. Consider the high-stakes environment of purchasing a new vehicle. Imagine sitting across from a salesperson, meticulously comparing the fuel economy of various hybrid SUVs. You are specifically inquiring about the highly anticipated late 2025 launch of the Maruti Suzuki Victoris, pressing for honest details about its impending availability and pricing. In this moment, the untrained observer looks for the stereotypical signs of a lie, such as a lack of eye contact. The seasoned observer, however, looks for the sudden death of comfort. If the salesperson's previously relaxed posture suddenly turns rigid, if their hands retreat beneath the desk, or if they instinctively touch the base of their neck in a frantic, pacifying gesture the moment the Victoris is mentioned, they have just broadcast a massive spike in limbic discomfort. The body is desperately attempting to soothe the anxiety generated by withholding the truth. This fundamental equation governs all human interaction, extending far beyond commercial negotiations or criminal interrogations. it is equally present in our most intimate personal environments. Imagine a sudden, intense disagreement with a brother concerning the strategies or outcomes of a highly competitive video game or a tense debate over a personal decision. In the heat of the argument, the context is entirely domestic, yet the biological responses remain absolutely identical. If a false accusation is made or a hidden reality is touched upon, the sudden tension, the unconscious crossing of the arms to create a torso shield, and the rapid, shallow breathing are the exact same markers of discomfort observed in a suspect under federal scrutiny. The observer's task is not to instantly accuse, but to meticulously map these sudden shifts, noting precisely which topics trigger the transition from natural ease to sudden defensive tension. A vital component of this observation is the profound absence or presence of emphasis. When an individual is speaking with absolute authenticity, their body naturally and unconsciously emphasizes their spoken words. The physical and the verbal become perfectly synchronized. A person recounting a genuine grievance or a deeply held conviction will naturally punctuate their sentences with definitive downward strikes of the hands. Their eyebrows will raise in perfect timing with their vocal inflection, and their entire torso will lean into the conversation to project their truth. This synchronized emphasis is almost impossible to consciously fake. Conversely, when the mind is heavily burdened with the cognitive load of constructing a deception, it lacks the spare processing power to orchestrate this intricate physical dance. The resulting behavior is characterized by a jarring lack of emphasis. The gestures become mistimed, arriving a fraction of a second after the spoken word. The hands may float weakly rather than strike definitively, and the facial expressions may appear contrived and hollow. The deceiver's words may sound plausible, but their body's failure to physically champion those words creates a deeply unsettling dissonance. The pursuit of the truth is a profound responsibility, demanding immense discipline and restraint. Proceeding with absolute caution is not merely a suggestion, it is the fundamental rule of behavioral analysis. A single pacifying gesture or a momentary flash of discomfort does not, in isolation, constitute a lie. It merely signifies stress. The true professional synthesizes these observations, carefully building a comprehensive baseline, recognizing the sudden, unexplained shifts in the comfort equation, and noting the glaring absence of natural emphasis. It is only by patiently assembling these complex, interlocking pieces of physical data that one can safely navigate the treacherous waters of human deception and arrive at a deeply informed understanding of the unspoken truth. Chapter 9. Some Final Thoughts. The journey into the silent language of the human body is not merely an acquisition of a new analytical skill, it is a fundamental reawakening of our most ancient biological senses. For too long, the modern world has conditioned us to prioritize the spoken word, training us from childhood to accept the carefully constructed facade of verbal communication as the ultimate truth. Yet, as we have explored the profound depths of the limbic system, from the undeniable, grounding honesty of the feet to the desperate, unconscious pacifying gestures of the hands, it becomes abundantly clear that true human intent operates on an entirely different frequency. Mastering this silent dialect requires a profound, lasting shift in how we choose to observe our environment. It is a steadfast commitment to seeing the world with an unvarnished clarity, deliberately stripping away the white noise of conscious deception to uncover the raw, physiological reality vibrating beneath the surface. The process of learning to read these non-verbal cues is much like the delicate, meticulous digital restoration of a faded, vintage photograph belonging to a grandfather. At first glance, the image of human interaction often appears clouded, its defining features obscured by the overwhelming blur of daily life, habitual assumptions, and social politeness. The untrained eye sees only a chaotic wash of movement and hears only the distraction of speech. But with patient, disciplined attention, the sharp, defining details slowly begin to emerge from the static, the subtle, momentary tension in a jawline, the defensive, almost imperceptible angling of a torso, or the sudden, absolute stillness of a foot are suddenly brought into high contrast. What was once entirely invisible becomes the most vital aspect of the picture, revealing a deeply human, underlying narrative that was always present, merely waiting for an observer trained to see it. Applying this behavioral science transforms every facet of existence, turning everyday encounters into dynamic, information-rich exchanges. Consider the immense complexities of interpersonal coordination and social harmony. Imagine the logistical intricacies of planning a complex group trip for a party of 4, with individuals departing from disparate locations like Ajmer, Jodhpur, and Ahmedabad, all needing to seamlessly synchronize their physical journeys to converge in the culturally vibrant, bustling cities of Vrindavan and Mathura. The ultimate success of such an endeavor does not rely solely on rigid train itineraries, printed tickets, or polite verbal agreements. It hinges entirely on the continuous unspoken emotional alignment of the group. It requires the constant empathetic reading of subtle, non-verbal cues, the heavy, exhaling sigh of travel fatigue, the buoyant, gravity-defying posture of genuine excitement, or the stiffened shoulders of unexpressed frustration, to gracefully navigate the emotional landscape and ensure the collective harmony remains firmly intact. Furthermore, this profound observational discipline equips us to navigate a world that is inherently fraught with shifting loyalties, hidden agendas, and sudden incongruities. We frequently proceed through life with confident assumptions, only to be confronted by realities that violently shatter our expectations. This experience of jarring dissonance is a universal human reality, much like the abrupt, frustrating realization during a digital account setup that a seemingly global platform like Buy Me a Coffee suddenly no longer supports payouts to India. When an expected reality clashes so definitively with the actual, undeniable data, the limbic system experiences an immediate physiological shock. The master observer thrives in these exact moments of dissonance. They do not merely listen to the verbal excuses or the rationalizations, they watch intently for the undeniable physical leakage of stress when a person's internal expectation collides with an external truth. They look for the rapid heartbeat visible in the neck, the sudden withdrawal of the hands into the pockets, and the desperate pacifying behaviors that signal the mind's frantic attempt to regain its lost equilibrium. Ultimately, the power to speed read every body is the power to connect more deeply and authentically with the human condition. It is not a weapon to be wielded for mere interrogation or cynical judgment, but a profound, illuminating tool for empathy. By recognizing the silent cries of discomfort, the hidden, deeply guarded vulnerabilities, and the unspoken joys radiating from those around us, we transcend the inherent limitations of language. We become active, conscious participants in the true, unspoken dialogue of humanity, possessing the rare and beautiful ability to respond not just to what people say, but to what they fundamentally, undeniably feel. This is the ultimate reward of dedicated observation, the ability to walk through the world with our eyes truly open.